Okay, so today we're going to be talking about ancient Asia, moving into our second chapter following our first test. And so in ancient Asia, our essential question is going to be how are religion and culture connected? And those things are going to be very connected for India and for China as we begin to kind of look at them. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on just kind of like the setup for things, but as you see these images behind me, kind of giving you some traditional structural buildings. Just a reminder that the geography of these regions is very diverse. China covers a large range of land, and really so does India as well. Behind me, you can kind of see that map right there. That's a lot of land mass to cover. And so there's a lot of diversity within the different cultures and the different things that occur there. So the first thing we're going to do is kind of look at just the general background of this group of people, early civilizations in South Asia. And so this really is India here we're talking about. So India is considered a subcontinent, which is a large landmass distinguishable from the larger continent. Now, I'm also going to go ahead and tell you, I'm noticing that the picture quality is really not good for these words. So if you're having trouble with them, I'm going to also go ahead and put up concurrently with the video. I'm going to put up the actual notes, a little bit better image, hopefully, so you can see them a little bit more clearly. Normally I'd put that up later on, but I'm going to try to do that here today. All right. So there's several mountain ranges that are located in India, and especially, as you can see over here, in this northern part. So India down here is not as mountainous, but these mountains, the Himalayas here, and then you've got the, I always have trouble reading that one. Right. Yeah, so Himalayas are right there, and then up here you've got the Hindu Kush. That's it. That's the word I was looking for. So those really end up kind of acting as sort of almost a fortress, if you will, for the entrance into the Indian subcontinent. There's also three major rivers. So you got the Indus River, the Indus River, here it is. Indus River is here. This one that kind of runs right up into the Hindu Kush. I'm going backwards there. Then over here, you've got the Ganges River. That one is the southernmost of the three rivers that primarily provide the water sources here. And then here you've got the Brahmaputra, which is on the other side. So really, the Brahmaputra and the Ganges, they kind of go around the Himalayas. They sort of encircle the Himalayas a little bit, if you will. Climate is monsoonal, which basically means this massive seasonal wind pattern blows in and brings tons and tons of moisture with it. And when it rains, like you've heard this phrase, when it rains, it pours. Well, that's never more true than in a monsoon situation. And so they'll have massive amounts of rain during these periodical seasonal wind patterns that blow through. But monsoons do have a tremendous effect on not just the climate of India, but it also has an effect on some of the historical events and some of the just the cultural adaptations that have to be made because of that. Okay, so the next one we're going to move into, we're going to talk a little bit about the people. And so the people, okay, so the people live in the Indus River Valley. And the two main cities, and we're going to actually do a little exercise with one of these two cities here in a little bit. The people who lived in Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. These are in present-day Pakistan, flourished for about 700 years. So that's a relatively long period of time for a very low-level civilization. What we don't know about these two civilizations, because again, they're very, very old, is that they may have existed at the same time and been sort of contemporaries, or one may have come before the other. In these particular communities, they were mainly farmers, and they were polytheistic. So similar to what we would see and what we've talked about with the Tigris, the Euphrates, and even Egypt, but at the same time a little bit different. So their gods are not the same gods by any means. Of course, that wasn't even true from Egypt to Mesopotamia. Those gods were very different, but there is still this idea of gods have certain responsibilities. And so if you want something to happen, you pray to a specific god for that. Sort of a similar thing. We don't really know how they declined, how the civilizations at Harappa and Mohenjo-daro declined. We do have some artifacts that kind of tell us what daily life was like there. And again, that's what that exercise is going to be, but we don't really know what happened to them, like what caused them to disappear. But eventually we do see into this region Indo-Europeans, nomads, which that's their language, is descended from that. They migrate into the region through acculturation, which is a blending of two or more cultures and a blending of with the local peoples. And they call themselves the Aryans. They didn't leave much evidence behind. Again, similar to what we see with Mohenjo-Daro and with Harappa, what we do know comes from something called the Vedas. And the Vedas are a collection of religious teachings and history, and they become essential to the foundations of what we will call Hinduism, the religion, the modern religion that started way back in the days of the Indus River Valley civilizations, at least the beginnings of it. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about to start with, is sort of the basic like concepts of what occurred with the religion of Hinduism, the foundations of it. So this will kind of give you an example of one of the big things that we can see developing as time goes on. So the first thing is the religion begins around 1500 before current era, and to about 500 before current era. So 1,000 years there is called the Vedic age. It is an oral teaching of the Vedas. And so with that, there's nothing written down. It's the same sort of tradition that you saw, we kind of talked about a little bit with Israel and the Jewish traditions that were passed down orally until finally there was a moment where you could sit down and write it down. So the Vedic age is this oral teaching. We're passing it like around the campfires. We're telling people over dinner. We're telling these stories to our children. They're telling those stories, and so it passes down. So they work slowly south and east through the subcontinent. So as you'll notice, they first move in right there along that river valley with the Indus in particular, but also kind of spending time right there around the Himalayas and the Hindu Kush mountains. And so then they begin to kind of move south. And as they move south, they settle down. They are led by a Raja, which is a chief or a prince kind of a group. And also the people that are moving down are skilled warriors. They become very, very good at what they're doing. The Aryans were naturalists, or were natural forces polytheists, meaning that similar to animism, they believed that the natural forces were spirits and those kind of things. Later, that evolves into the idea of a Brahman, that there is a higher single God, and also the development of Aryan mysticism. So kind of an offshoot, sort of a, I guess you might call it like a different denomination or a different sect of that kind of thing. So that kind of gets us into something we'll talk about in the next slide about really what is Hinduism? Is Hinduism polytheistic, or is it actually monotheistic? And so that's an interesting discussion. But in any case, these Aryans who are developing the early stages of it are seeking communion with divine forces, connection. Now, this is another one of the slides that I'm definitely going to need to post up for you guys later on. You can hardly read what's up there. So the thing behind my head is the caste system. So you can see that word written there. That's clear. But the rest of it is kind of delineating what the caste system look like. Well, what's the top? What's the bottom? So the top is this one over here, right here by my head, the Brahmins. Okay, these are your priests. So if you remember from notes a couple of days ago, we said that the Indus River Valley was a theocracy, which basically means that religious leaders are the ones who govern everything. And that's really where the Brahmins come in. These priests are the ones who are at the top of the pyramid of things. The next group down is the Kshatriyas. Okay, these are your rulers and your warriors. So the priests are really directing what the rulers are supposed to do, and the Kshatriyas, these warriors and rulers, are kind of going in hand with that. Okay, so the next group that we're going to talk about is the Vaishyas, and I'm going to go ahead and have this pronounced. This is kind of a test to see. I think it's important that we learn to pronounce these correctly because I need to learn to pronounce these things correctly, and so I want you to as well, just out of respect, since these are descriptions of people, and eventually we'll get into some of the religious words that are important too. So I'm going to see if this works. The Vaishyas sound like this.
Vaishya.
Okay. And so that particular group are your commoners, your merchants, the farmers and the artisans. It's kind of strange, though, even though the middle class as we know it doesn't really develop until post-Middle Ages, the Vaishyas really kind of end up being a sort of middle class group. These are the people in the middle. They're not low class, they're not high class, they're not super wealthy or super powerful. They're just in the middle. Then we have another group, the Sudras, which are non-Aryan peasants, and they are the largest part of the population. So we're going to pronounce that word real quick. Shudra.
Shudra.
Oh, sorry, Shudra. Ready?
Shudra.
There you go. So the Shudra, again, they're the largest part of the population. They make up a large number of people. And then we have a distinct drop. So the final group, pronounced as the Dalit,
Dalit.
they are the untouchables. These are the people who are considered less than, almost less than human in society. They're treated very, very poorly, and they take on the useless jobs, or the demeaning jobs in society. They are the trash collectors. Their job is to make leather from animal skins, which is considered a job that makes you unclean. And so they're put into these positions because they are seen as less than the overall society. Okay, so that's the caste system. And as we know, the caste system is in place in India for a vast majority of history. In 1945, I believe, they passed a law saying that the caste system is officially gone, that it is not an official part of Indian culture, Indian society anymore, yet the remnants of it do still exist. Okay, so now we're going to move into the origins of Hinduism and Buddhism. So this is going to be Unit 3.2, or Chapter 3, Unit 2, Part 2. And so the first thing that we see here is the symbol, the or the is the symbol behind my head. I'll move out of the way real quick. That is the essence of ultimate reality. That is a symbol of Hinduism. And we'll talk about Buddhism tomorrow. So don't worry about that yet. You don't have to write that part down. We'll come back to that for tomorrow. Okay. So our next slide is really dealing with the history of Hinduism and its development. So Hinduism's saying, an ancient proverb, is God is one, but wise people know it by many names. Now, take a second and tell me, what do you think that means? Okay. So really what that is trying to translate is that Hinduism believes that all gods really are just a reflection of one God. And that, therefore, like, everybody worships the same deity, one God. They just call him different names, or it, or her, or them different names, well, however you want to gender it. So basically, they believe there's all these different things that really represent one. And so therefore, we would classify Hinduism as a monotheistic religion. It says it's a worship of a variety of gods who give concrete form to Brahman, the unchanging, all-powerful spiritual force. This is the ultimate God. Now, within that, there are three main gods, and again, they all kind of form together for Brahman. Brahma, the creator, his job is to, create. Vishnu, the preserver, who is there to kind of oversee what's going on as things move along. And then finally, you have Shiva, the destroyer, who will come when all things are brought to a close. And again, these all come together to form the Brahman. Now, if it sounds a little familiar, it's similar, but incredibly different from the Christian Holy Trinity. God in three persons, one God. So Hinduism does kind of have a few other gods that we would look at, as opposed to, say, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit within Christianity, but they do still view it the same way. They kind of form one. Now, Hindus do not have a particular book, but they have several books of knowledge and religious writings. They are the Vedas, which we've already talked about, the Vedic age, and I'm going to go ahead and hit the pronunciation on this one just because.
Upanishads.
Upanishads. So Upanishads, these are another set of texts that help inform Hindu belief. And one of the key beliefs is reincarnation, which is defined as the rebirth of one's soul. Now, you've probably seen versions of reincarnation displayed, where if you're a terrible person, you come back as a snail. Or you're a good person, you come back as something better. Within reincarnation, it is the rebirth of a person's soul. Different beliefs kind of exist within different groups that also subscribe to reincarnation. But with Hinduism, it's this idea, and we'll get to this kind of in a second, that you reincarnate seeking to find union with Brahman. Okay? That leads us to karma. Karma is a force generated by one's actions, good or bad. That determines your future and your rebirth. Since humans are closest to Brahman, they are high up there. And so like if they have good karma throughout their life, that will translate or empower them to move closer to Brahma until they reach moksha here in a second. We'll talk about what that is. Now, after humans come animals, then plants, then objects. All of them are connected to Brahman. Okay. Dharma, there is your religious and moral duties of an individual. In Judeo-Christian culture, you might call that obedience or holiness. But Dharma is this idea of this is what I have to do as a human being to achieve good karma. Yoga is training to achieve union. So if you've done yoga, you may have done yoga with the spiritual component here, this idea of unifying yourself. But it's interesting that just from a purely exercise standpoint, you're still kind of tapping into this concept, the training to achieve union. When you do yoga, so much of it is balance related and controlling every aspect of your body that you're trying to unify your body into a single combined sort of progress or thought. And of course, yoga also does a tremendous amount of work with the core, which again, you could see it as being symbolic of you are trying to unify the core of who you are as a person. All right, moksha is the ultimate goal. It's kind of getting low, so I'm having to lean out of the way here. Moksha is the ultimate goal. If you achieve moksha, you break the cycle of reincarnation, and your soul achieves union with Brahman. Okay, you have become one with the ultimate God. And ahimsa is all living things have souls. This belief that every living thing has a soul, which is why a Hindi might very well not be a vegetarian simply because they believe there's a soul in there, and that soul is important, and so you wouldn't want to eat or consume something that had a soul. Now, social structure is again the caste system. The social structure is what you are born into, and you cannot move up or down within your lifetime. Now, that's where reincarnation comes in. If you were born into a Dalit family, then if you have good karma, you could potentially move up into your next level, okay? A Shudra. So the caste system is social categories that determine what occupation, economic, potential, and position in society you have. It is rigid. Unlike America, where it is difficult to move from lower class to higher class, it is still possible. It is impossible in a caste society. It does not matter what you could do, you will always be in that particular party or that particular class or caste system. All right, so a couple other quick things. We've got a couple of Hindu deities listed up here. And again, I'll show them on the notes. They'll be a little bit better and easier to see, and you can define who they are. So that just kind of gives you a general image of what they are. So like Vishnu is this one here. Sorry, you can't see that, can you? Vishnu is this one right there. And then Shiva, the other one, is the one up here, who has many, many arms. And a couple of the others that are listed there. So basically that's Hinduism, and we're going to move into Buddhism tomorrow. So be looking for that as we get ready. Thanks.